जय गोपीजनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदानन्दन जय व्रज जनरञ्जन जय यशोदानन्दन जय व्रज जनरञ्जन जय यमुनातीरवनचारी जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय यमुनातीरवनचारी जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा जय विश्वपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र षट श्री मिसेस डिवाइन ग्रेस AC भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र षट श्री मिसेस डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर महाराज की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। I need the book. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके Bhaktir-bhavati naishtaki. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 30, entitled Description of Adverse Fruitive Activities. So I'll be reading texts 22 and 23, and then we'll do the text 24 responsively, because there's no purports for 22 and 23. So I'll just read the translations of 22 and 23. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. Text 23. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue, and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. We'll now do text number 24. Yojananam sahasrani navatim nava chadvanaha tribhir muhurtair dvabhyam ba nitah prapnoti yatanaha yojananam sahasrani navatim navachadvanaha tribhir muhurtair dvabhyam va Nita prapnoti yatanaha yojananam sahasrani navatim navachadvanaha tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va nitah prapnoti yatanaha yojananam sahasrani Navatim navachadvanaha tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va nitah prapnoti yatanaha yojananam sahasrani navatim navachadvanaha Tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va Nitah prapnoti yatanaha Yojananam sahasrani Navatim navachatmanaha Tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va Nitah prapnoti yatanaha Yojananam sahasrani Navatim navachatmanaha Tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va Nitah prapnoti yatanaha Yojananam sahasrani Navachatmanaha Tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va Nitah prapnoti yatanaha. Vaishnavis. Yojananam sahasrani Navatim navachatmanaha Tribhir muhurtae dvabhyam va Nitah prapnoti yatanaha. Synonyms. Yojananam, of yojanas. Sahasrani, thousands. Navatim, 90. Nava, 9. Cha, and advanaha, from a distance, tribihi, 3, muhurtae, within moments, dvabhyam, 2, ba, or, nitaha, brought, prapnoti, he receives, yatanaha, punishments. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. Please repeat. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. Purport. 1 yojana is calculated to be 8 miles, and he has to pass along a road which is therefore as much as 792,000 miles. Such a long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constables so that the living entity can pass such a long distance quickly and at the same time tolerate the suffering. This covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. To pass 792,000 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here we see that a criminal passes 792,000 miles within a few seconds only, although the process is not spiritual but material. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. This is a very graphic and interesting, bewildering, scary, fear-invoking description of what happens to a soul when he, or rather it, is dragged to the abode of Yamraj. So before I actually give a class on this, I just want to take a moment to glorify today is an extremely auspicious day based on our calendar. It is Akshaya Tritiya, which is a great day for conducting spiritual activities as well as doing acts of charity, penance, austerity, and donations. And today is the day that Lord Parashuram appeared on this day. This is a day that Mother Ganga descended to the earth. This day also marks the beginning of Treta Yuga. This is also the day that Sudama visited Lord Krishna in Dwarka, and the Pandavas received the Akshay Patra from the sun god. The Vyasadeva started composing Mahabharata on this day. Kubera, the treasurer, received wealth and position as the treasurer. And finally, the goddess Annapurna, who is the goddess of food, appeared on this day. So based on our calendar, this is an excellent day for conducting extra spiritual activities. So I just wanted to mention this since this is a great day. So this verse is particularly important because I was just meditating on this. So I'm going to divide my talk into the concept of yojanas, the abode of Yamaraj, and what the suffering is for the living entity. And here, the background coming from the first 23 verses is basically giving a description of the destination of a soul or a person who has conducted mischievous activities. It's interesting, Srila Prabhupada used the word mischievous activities. And later in the previous purports, these people are referred to as those who are excessively attached to householder life. They are securing money by committing violence, and they are engaged in criminal offenses. So this destination where the Dutas of Yamaraj come and take the soul to the planet of Yamaraj is not for pious souls. This is basically for souls who are engaged in very negative activities in the world here. So the key message which is coming from so many of these verses in the past 20 verses is, first of all, Yamaraj has his own abode or planet, and he stays on a planet known as Pitraloka, where all the Pitras go, and then Yamraj conducts the judgment. Secondly, at the time of death, when a person dies, and if the person has not been leading a good life, a pious life, and has engaged in evil activities, the Dutas of Yamraj would come, and actually it's described very graphically how they come with a noose, a rope, and they drag the soul away from the body and take the soul to the abode of Yamraj. Just like when somebody commits a crime, whether it's a small crime like stealing something from a grocery store, or a very large crime like committing a murder, the police will come and catch that person, put him or her in the jail, and then the judge has to give the final decision, whether the imprisonment has to be for 6 months or it has to be for 15 or 20 years. In the same way, the job of the messengers is to simply take the individual back to Yamraj, and then Yamraj asks his secretary, whose name is Chitragupta, and he asks Chitragupta, please tell me what all sins has this particular individual committed. And based on the intensity of the sin, the destination is determined for that particular soul. And here it is mentioned here that I'll talk a little bit about the position of the hellish planets here, but in Bhagavatam Canto 4 as well as Bhagavatam 1.3.2, it is mentioned how the entire universal system is created and organized, and it's extremely fascinating. It's detailedly described in the book known as Vedic Cosmology for anyone who's interested. So it is mentioned that our universe is made up of 14 divisions of planetary systems. And these 14 divisions, the upper planets, the middle planets, and the lower planets, are all located within the stem of the lotus flower, which is coming from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And it is mentioned there are 7 upper planetary systems, such as Bhur, Bhuvar, Swar, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, and Satya. And the earth planet lies in the center. And below the earth, there are 7 lower planets, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. And where are the hellish planets located? And the reason I'm giving this description is because Yamraj is determining whether this soul is going to what kind of hellish planets. And in Bhagavatam 5.26, Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukadev Goswami, can you please explain to me what are the different kinds of hellish planets? And for anyone who reads that particular chapter, it is extremely scary, and we all aspire not to go to any of those planets. In fact, Sukadev Goswami describes 28 different kinds of hells. And that chapter 26 indicates what are the different kinds of hells recommended for people who engage in different kinds of activities. Just an example, I've taken 2 examples here, that for a person who is actually involved in conducting very bad, evil activities and killing animals, that particular person is thrown into a hell known as Rurava, where the animals known as Rurus come and bite him and eat him up. That's one kind of hell. Another kind of hell is known as Kumbhipak, where people who hunt animals, and a lot of people do that even today, they go for hunting as a means of recreation, which is very sad. For those kinds of people, they are boiled in cooking oil. So this is a very graphic description. I just wanted to share this. And so these hellish planets are the place where these individuals who are engaged in evil activities are taken here. And the activities, what determines which kind of hellish planet we, or rather people who are evil, actually supposed to go to? That is totally dependent on what kind of modes are interacting upon us, whether we conducted activities in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. Mostly those who are in the mode of ignorance and who are guided by impiety and who are atheists and who are conducting criminal offenses are thrown in the most severe hellish condition. And those who are impious out of ignorance, because they are guided by madness, though they are also thrown into hellish planets, but of less severity here. So the destination is confirmed for these individuals based on their activities. So it is also mentioned in the purport, and Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in several different books what the location of the hellish planets is. I mentioned about the 14 planetary systems, and the last one is Patal. And below Patal and above the Garbhodaka ocean, there is a space where all these hellish planets are located here. And this is an intermediate space right above the Garbhodaka ocean, which is very interesting to find here. And even in that space, there is Pitraloka, where Yamaraj is actually given the service of indicating where each one of these souls are meant to go. And Yamaraj has his Yamadutas also. So it is also mentioned by Shukadev Goswami to King Parikshit Maharaj that those who are pious are not taken here. Their destination is either heavenly planets, or they can be liberated and go to the Vaikuntha Lokas here. So this is basically for the evil individuals here. So one thing that caught my eye in this purport was very interesting is the excessive length of time that an individual has to travel, which is 99,000 yojanas. And one yojana is 8 miles. So essentially, a person, when an individual is being dragged by the Yamadutas, is traveling a distance of 792,000 miles in just a few seconds. So it's very hard for us materially to really conceive this. How can somebody just travel in 5 seconds a distance of 792,000 miles? It's unbelievable. But it is mentioned in the purport here that the constables of Yamaraj actually cover the body. So this body is not a physical body, because when someone dies, the physical body is gone, either burnt, cremated, or buried, whatever the case. So it's the subtle body which is being carried, which is mind, intelligence, false ego, and our impressions. These are being carried away. So I was trying so hard to find from the scriptures, how does a subtle body feel the pain when there's no physical body? And it is mentioned how the dogs eat the limbs, how the flesh is being burnt. So how is this possible when the subtle body doesn't have a gross body? And I was actually trying to research, Acharyas trying to find out how is the subtle body able to experience the pain. And His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj gave a lecture long ago in Malaysia, where he made it very clear that just as we are dreaming, we feel somebody is attacking us in a dream, and we feel the pain that somebody is slapping me, or somebody is putting, fisting me on the head or something, and we feel it's really happening to me. But it's not happening to us. It is a dream. And when we wake up, we are kind of shaken up, thinking that it really happened to me, and we sometimes feel the pain. In the same way, it is mentioned that the subtle body is thinking that it's still embodied in a gross body, and so it starts feeling the pain. But the Yamadutas are so intelligent that it is mentioned in the purport, the constables cover this subtle body. If there is no covering of the subtle body by the constables of Yamaduta, 2 things are not possible. One, they will not be able to travel that huge distance of 792,000 miles on their own. The constables are taking them. And secondly, the subtle body will not be able to experience the pain on the journey. And we've seen the journey in the previous verses. There are forest fires all over the place. The soul has to suffer hunger and thirst. There's no place to rest. All this would not be possible without the covering of the constables. And it is mentioned in the purport also that this subtle body is covered by very fine elements for which the material scientists have absolutely no conception here. We have no conception of what these fine elements are which are covering the subtle body. So this is extremely interesting from scientific point of view, how this soul is being dragged here. And in terms of this distances, I was trying to find out with regard to the planetary systems. The distance from the sun to the earth is 100,000 yojanas. And it is mentioned, so that's a huge distance, and nobody has been able to go to the planet sun yet. Although there is great endeavor to make these fancy space shuttles to take us to the sun, but that's not going to be possible, because anytime someone enters the rays of the sun, they're going to be burnt because of the pressure of the fire there. So the same distance, 100,000 yojanas versus 99,000 yojanas. So that individual is carried such a long distance in a matter of seconds here. And I was trying to find out what are the fastest speed elements here in our material world here. So the fastest man-made object by the scientists in today's world is a solar probe. It's a small metallic machine. It's a solar probe by the name of Parker, and this has a maximum speed of 400,000 miles per hour. And that's nothing compared to the soul that is being carried at 792,000 miles per 5 seconds or so. So we cannot even calculate the extent of the speed of the carriage of the soul. In the same way, the fastest planet which is orbiting the sun is Mercury. And that is even very slow. It is 107,000 miles per hour. So the reason I'm giving you these details is even the speed of light, which is supposed to be the fastest, it's about 186,000 miles per second. So these are all much slower than the speed by which the soul is being carried to the abode of Yamaraj. And that's amazing just to think about this. So I was thinking, what could be faster than this for us? And I was immediately thinking how the speed of the mind is the fastest. Immediately I can transport myself to Vrindavan in less than half a second. I close my eyes and I think sitting myself in front of Krishna Balram right there, and I feel I'm right there within a matter of a second. So the speed of mind is very, very fast, but I don't know how that compares to the speed of the soul being carried to the Pitraloka. So somebody will have to do those calculations here. And it is mentioned here that we have these 5 panchakoshas here. When we are looking at the 5 kinds of coverings, our gross covering is known as Annamaya because we have to feed the body for it to survive. And then the 3 subtle elements are known as Pranmaya, Manomaya, which is intelligence, and Vijnanmaya. So these are the gross and the subtle elements. But we have to go beyond these panchakoshas and really situate ourselves in what is called Anandamaya, where we realize our position with regard to Krishna and render service to him. So in terms of body, as is mentioned here, when a person dies, the gross body is gone, the subtle body is carrying all the impressions here. And the Garud Puran states it very specifically that the subtle body keeps the effects of a past karma intact. It carries the impressions. So one thing I was trying to research, and please correct me if anyone has an answer, when a person is being carried like this, the subtle body is being dragged by the Yamadutas, the subtle body is aware of what it had done in this life. The whole karmic reactions comes in front and plays like a movie. So I'm just curious to know whether at that position, excuse me, the subtle body is able to remember the previous lifetimes also. Because all these impressions are being built up for millions of lifetimes. So is it possible that that subtle body, when it's being carried by Yamadutas, is able to remember only the current life? Or it is also able to remember the previous thousands of million lifetimes? I'm not sure. We'll have to do a bit of a research because it is mentioned the impressions are carried forever by the subtle body. So it's very interesting from a scientific point of view. Srila Prabhupada always used to say, the university has every department except a department for understanding the soul. And that is so much needed here. So there are so many departments on theology, on religions, on so-called spirituality, but nobody is really exploring the science of the soul. And that can be such an amazingly fascinating subject in itself if that department opens up. So I was thinking of stories where people wanted to either go to the heavenly planets and stay there forever, or people who were destined to go to a hellish planet through the mercy of the Lord was sent elsewhere. So the number one story that comes to our mind is the story of Ajamil, where he was taken by the Yamadutas, and then the Vishnu Dutas came and said, no, you cannot take him there because he has chanted the holy name of Narayan. So this story is very interesting because it shows where somebody was destined to go based on his evil, I wouldn't use the word evil, but impure activities, and just because he had chanted the holy name of the Lord, the power of that holy name actually released him from that particular destination and he was carried elsewhere where the Vishnu Dutas came. So that's one positive story for us, which makes us reinforce the idea that we should never ever give up chanting the holy name of the Lord. It is mentioned, even if we are doing mechanically, we should do it, because there would be one day where we will feel the love for Krishna and hopefully be able to chant with attention and sincerity. And the second story that comes into my mind regarding dragging of the soul is the story of Satyavan and Savitri. And this is mentioned in the Vana Parva of Mahabharata. It is mentioned that Savitri was a very chaste princess, and she saw a prince whose name was Satyavan, and she immediately fell in love with him and she wanted to marry him. So when she expressed this to her father, the father did a horoscope, and the priest said, "You should not get your daughter married to Satyavan because he is destined to die in exactly 1 year." And so the father asks Savitri, "You should marry somebody else because your husband will die in 1 year." But she was completely adamant. She said, "I really want to marry him only, and I would like to serve him for that 1 year." So exactly after 1 year, when they were in the forest, Satyavan had a high fever, palpitation, and he fell to the ground dead. And that time Yamaraj came, put a noose around his neck and started dragging his soul. While Yamaraj was walking through the forest and trying to climb up the mountains, trying to reach Pitraloka, Savitri followed him constantly and did not give up. She kept on following him, and Yamaraj looked behind and said, "Why are you following me?" And she said, "I would like to get my husband back." And Yamaraj said, "That is impossible. He has already left his body and I'm taking his soul to my planet." So I won't go into the dialogue here, it's very lengthy, but she reasons with him and gives very strong words of wisdom. And through her chastity, Yamaraj is very fascinated by her, and he says, "Okay, I'm very fascinated. You are a very pious wife. Ask me for 2 or 3 boons." So the first boon she asks is, "My father-in-law is blind. Please give him his sight back." And he says, "So be it." Second boon she asks is, "Let my father-in-law rule his kingdom for thousands of years in a very regulated manner." And Yamaraj says, "Yes." And third boon she asks is, "Let me be blessed with 100 sons with my husband Satyavan." And Yamaraj says, "Yes." And immediately she catches him. She says, "How can I have the sons when you're taking my husband away?" And Yamaraj immediately feels, yes, this very chaste lady has, and since I've given the boon, I have to give the life back to Satyavan, and he actually releases him from his noose. And this is the power of chastity of a woman, that she was able to actually get her husband back from the claws of death. And the third example I want to give you is that of King Trishanku. And a very interesting example here. This is coming from Ramayana, and King Trishanku is coming from the Ikshvaku dynasty, and he is one of the great ancestors of Dasharath Maharaj. It is mentioned he was so attached to his beautiful body, so attached that he did not want to give up that body. And he wanted to go to the heavenly planets in that same body without dying. So he approached the priest of the Ikshvaku dynasty, Vasishtha Muni, and he says, "Oh Vasishtha Muni, please transport me to the heavenly kingdoms in this very body." And Vasishtha Muni said, "That is impossible. You cannot go in this body to the heavenly planets. Somebody has to die, and depending on your piety, you can be taken to the heavenly planets." So he refused him. So King Trishanku went to Vishwamitra Muni, and he knew Vishwamitra Muni and Vasishtha Muni don't get along very well because of a variety of reasons. And he goes there and he says, "Vishwamitra Muni, please allow me to go to the heavenly planets." And Vishwamitra Muni says, "Yes, I will allow you." So he does lots of fire sacrifices and austerities, and through that he is able to raise King Trishanku in his present body to the heavenly planets. But before he reaches the heavenly planets, King Indra is watching and says, "Who is this soul coming to me? This soul has not conducted the pious activities which are needed to reach the heavenly planets, and this soul is coming in the present body, which is not possible." So Indra kicks him out of heavens and says, "You're not allowed here." And it is mentioned here in Ramayana how Indra was kicking Trishanku down and Vishwamitra Muni was putting him up. So this is like a baseball going on. He's thrown down and he's thrown up. And Trishanku is just going between heaven and earth. And finally, Trishanku goes to Lord Vishnu and surrenders and says, "Oh my Lord, please let me be in the heavenly planets." And Lord Vishnu says, "This is not possible. You have acted out of etiquette and you have caused a lot of disruption. So you will not be allowed to go into the heavenly kingdoms. Rather, you will be suspended in between neither heaven nor earth. You'll be kind of upside down suspended. It is mentioned in the Shastra, he's suspended in an upside down manner, and that state is known as Trishanku state. So it is mentioned here that there is a very designated time, place, and circumstance under which somebody is placed into heavenly planets versus the hellish planets. And we cannot aspire and say, change my destiny, I need to go to the heavenly planets. Nobody would ask for the hellish planets. So through these 2-3 stories that I mentioned, it is very clear that everything is predetermined for us. And it is our choice whether we want to see the Yamadutas at the end of our life or whether we want to see the Vishnu Dutas at the end of life. And through Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we are all aspiring that the Vishnu Dutas will come and take us and release us from this so-called material existence here. So I just want to recap here really quick that these few verses are describing the journey of the soul, and the journey itself is so bad and torturous, what to speak of when they actually reach the hellish planets, how bad it would be there. And it is mentioned by Shukadev Goswami that there are thousands of hellish planets in Yamaraja's kingdom, and he's just giving a description of 28 of these. So I don't want to end on a negative note here, but for us, we are neither optimistic neither pessimistic. I would classify ourselves as being realistic. So we know what is real. The knowledge is given to us in the Bhagavatam and the Gita. We just have to follow it and actually go or aspire for service to the Lord, wherever the Lord takes us. Even if it's the hellish planet, we are welcome to do service for the Lord there. I would like to end my class here. Thank you. And please correct me, there's so many things which are not known here. Prabhu, either ones.
You mentioned about remembering things in hell, about your previous lives. I don't specifically remember anything like that. I think it's also stated that when the hounds of hell bite you, you remember your past sins. But in terms of remembrance, it's mentioned in this canon we're reading right now about the child in the womb. Sometimes he remembers 100 of his past births. So that's also mentioned.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's really interesting. One can spend a whole life doing research on this, essentially, our remembrances.
On this point of, thank you for a very nice class, of course. On this point of remembering, I remember hearing Prabhupada say that when you become liberated, you can remember all your past lives. I've heard that. Just one point, the speed of light is comparable to the speed, because the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. So if you do the math, you say 5, you're using 5 as your 5 moments, so 5 times 186,000 is about the same thing. And the big one is that the subtle body has senses. That's described in the 4th canto in that part with King Paranjana. It's actually in the subtle body, those are the real senses. Like just you're wearing glasses now, but it's not the glasses that is seeing, it's your eyes that is seeing. The glasses are an instrument that are helping you to see. So in the same way, the gross senses are actually instruments when they're activated that enable the subtle senses to interact with this gross material world. Like a dead body, because it's not plugged in, so to speak. The eyes are there, the ears are there, the nose is there, none of those senses work. And another example of that is there's people who are blind from birth, but when they have this out-of-body experience, they can see. So their eyes, they have sight, but in their gross body, their eyes are not working, so it prevents them from seeing. But when they're out of the gross body, they have the subtle eyes see. And this is described very elaborately in a book that Judah Karma wrote called Human Devolution. If you can get your hands on a copy of that. But definitely the subtle body has senses. So.
Thank you for. In fact, I'm part of a project led by ISKCON devotees. We are working on reincarnation. and near-death experiences, and we were talking about phantom limbs, where somebody loses an arm, but they still have the experience of the pain, despite the arm or the leg not being there. So it's very interesting, this entire area. Thank you for the comments.
In the same comment that Rabindranath Prabhu was mentioning about how is it possible that the living entity can forget? Is that what it is?
I was just curious to know whether, do we carry the entire baggage of our previous thousands of millions of lifetimes, or do we forget it, the subtle body? I think that's the point I was trying to...
So actually that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, just a further, I was reading it, and it is mentioned that when the baby within the womb is making all these prayers, he really sounds very Krishna conscious. I was thinking, well, and he actually decides to stay there.
Correct.
He doesn't want to come out because prefer to be there than to go out and be in Maya. So then Prabhupada explains there that actually it's only due to the mercy of the Lord that he can remember or forget. He gives that, and then he calls the verse Sarvasya Chahang Hridisa Nivisto. That he gives that. It's a special mercy to remember or to forget.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I think in the Gita, the Lord says, I am remembrance and forgetfulness.
And another thing that I was going to say, that just to reconfirm something that you mentioned about that Jaya Pataka Maharaj found that lecture where he mentions about the suffering, or this, what is that?
He mentioned that the subtle body feels that it still has a gross body.
So when I was reading that, I asked Dhruta Karma about this 3 days ago. You know, the impression is that when you see the description of the dogs biting, what is it biting? Because he doesn't have a material body. Mm-hmm. Our impression is that we need a material body to actually feel that pain.
Correct.
But then he mentioned the same thing. He said that actually it's just like a dream. In your dream, you feel like you're experiencing something, but
correct.
It's not happening.
Correct. I think we're so into the gross senses, it's kind of hard to contemplate when we're talking about biting or feeling the pain and so forth.
And if you analyze also, the dogs are not an ordinary dogs.
Right.
That's another thing. I was thinking, wait, what are they doing, the dogs there?
Right.
What are they? Is it just some dream? No, it's a subtle world, and in the subtle world, people have mind and senses. It's like a whole world, but it's just beyond our experience.
Correct.
It's not just like dream,
It's existing, but
Makes
at a
sense.
very subtle level.
But it's a world. It's it's place and senses and people and object and the whole world. Anyway, I'm not an expert.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sure, Prabhu. Yeah. Prabhu, I have my notes on this. So, you're welcome to take it, yes.
Subtle.